Good evening and welcome to The Author's Corner with your host, author Kimberly McLemore, as she welcomes her guests into the studio to discuss excerpts of their book.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Author's Corner. I am your host, author Kimberly McLemore, and thank you for tuning into tonight's show. Oh boy, I have another amazing, great guests in store for you. But before we get started, let me just take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about myself and the purpose of the show. I am the author of How to Be a Success by Just Being You, Are You Living or Existing? The Pros and Cons of Balancing Life, and the 2019 Isla Award Author of the Year for Social Awareness for my book memoir, Deception of the Heart, A Real Look into Domestic Violence. I am also the CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, the host of the podcast Your Resource for Success, also on iHeartRadio, and the founder of the Author Kimberly McLemore, LLC. But the purpose of this platform is to provide new and existing authors an opportunity to tell us their stories, promote their book or books, events, and speaking engagements. But let me introduce to you my first special guest. Her name is Miss Amanda Arthur Krill, who is the author of Mom vs. Debt. Amanda has a passion for helping overwhelmed moms who are tired of living mediocre lives by teaching them how to tame the chaos of their everyday existence so they can start living a life they can't wait to get out of bed for every single day. Amanda lives in Hicksville, Ohio with her husband and 3 teenagers. She writes books, coaches moms, and designs websites. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, my guest author, Amanda Arthur Krill. Hey, Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Such a pleasure to have you on tonight. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And your book definitely is great timing for the way things are today. So I can't wait for us to dive into that. But before we do, please just say hello to everybody and tell us a little bit more about who Amanda is. See, you got this middle name of Arthur and author. So I'm like trying to skip that part right now because it's just way too confusing. So Amanda, just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
All right. So thank you again for having me. And I am an entrepreneur, author, speaker, all those things. And I started my business 14 years ago because I was in a massive amount of debt. My husband didn't know about it, $64,000, just to get it out there. I had $64,000 worth of credit card debt that my husband didn't know about. And I had 3 little kids. They're all teenagers now, but at the time, the oldest was 3 and the youngest was 6 months old. And the idea of trying to find a job that would also be enough money to pay off the debt, over time, obviously, and pay for childcare was just unreasonable. Like it wasn't even something that could happen. So I decided to start my own business so I could stay home with the kids and pay off the debt. So I started as a virtual assistant. I moved into website design, and within 3 years, I had it paid off. Wow. Then I just continued along and floated along with my business and finally decided after, everybody always asks me how I did it, so I might as well write a book about it.
Wow. Well, that is a quick dive in of how everything happens. So we're going to break this all down just a little bit. Oh my gosh. The biggest thing that stood out to me in that quick fix of overview of what your story is about was the $64,000 in debt, and then the husband didn't know. So I was like, wait a minute, that just perked my ears up there really, really quickly there. So let's kind of backtrack. And you said that obviously you started this because, you were overwhelmed in some things that you had went through, but where did the other portion of passion come from for you to want to not just help yourself, but also even help others? Obviously, let's start with you. And how did you get yourself in such debt? What happened there?
Well, so honestly, I don't know what I spent it on. It was just nonsense. And I go through this in the book and talk more specifically about, it was just nonsense. It wasn't anything. And when my husband did find out about it, he's like, if you'd had a Lexus in the garage, like I could get it. But what did you spend this on? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. It just happened, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse until I finally, and I was completely like sticking my head in the sand about it, like total ostrich move, had no idea what the total was. When I finally added it up, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what have I done? So like cold turkey on all spending, no spending whatsoever above, paying bills and whatnot and buying groceries and stuff like that. But I completely cut it off and made a plan. And it was like, once I realized how bad it was the actual paying it off wasn't that hard. It was because it was so appalled at myself. And so it wasn't like I got depressed over it. It was like it gave me purpose. And I think really what drove it, what caused the debt was boredom. I had 3 kids, which kept me completely busy, but I was trying to be a stay-at-home mom with nothing else to do and no friends and no nothing. And I think I was just bored. And, that was a pretty hefty price for boredom. But
yeah, I was thinking the same. So yeah, that's a heck of a price to have to pay to be bored. But.
Yeah, like I wish I would have learned the lesson a little earlier. But, when I look back, it was something that needed to happen. And if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I don't even like, everybody's like, oh that's like quite a mistake. And I'm like, well, it was, but it was really a catalyst that I needed to move forward in other areas. So I don't think of it as a mistake. I think of it as a thing that I had to deal with that kind of pushed me in a direction that I never dreamed of going.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of people would definitely say, oh my gosh, you made such a huge mistake, but it's only a mistake when you don't learn from it. And that's the key here, where you absolutely learn from it. But, Amanda, when did this actually occur? What year was this? And I'm just curious to know the answer to this.
So my oldest son was around 3 when I realized how much money I had spent. So that was 2006.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I have to do something about this. So yeah, it was about 2006. So gosh, it's been like 14 years ago.
Yeah.
When it all started.
Yeah. The reason why I was so curious about it is because, we had obviously in 2008, we had the big breakdown, that was the first major ordeal. And of course, now we're going through another huge breakdown when it comes to financials, in our system. And as individuals, a lot of times we as people, we have the tendency to, as humans, say, hey, I've got the money, I can spend, I can do what I want to do. And I'm always going to have that ability to pay that back. And so I was thinking in my mind, was that your thought process beyond just being bored?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I was even paying attention to that at all. So I don't think so. I think that I was just bored.
Wow.
But yeah, no, and the interesting thing is that it was in, around 2008 when everything kind of broke down. And that was when I paid off my debt, was like right around that time. So like, even though, the world at large is kind of falling apart, that doesn't mean you can't still find ways to make money.
Right.
That's interesting.
Absolutely right. And it's proven fact again today, right? And to some degree, it's definitely that proven fact. But it just, I just needed to ask that question because I was just curious, like, wow, did that happen during that time frame? But the thing is still, it just keeps wrapping around my head is the boredom part, and that you not knowing, because, I'm sure you've had that question a million times. What do you mean you didn't know? How would you not understand that? That you're just spending and you're just spending. And obviously this was probably done, I'm assuming, on a lot of credit card debt. Is that the case?
Yes. Yeah. All credit card debt. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's,
and I would just pay the minimum and not really look at the bill. And, like, whatever, it's fine. Yeah. Until it wasn't anymore.
Right. It's like just enough to get by and just keep paying it a little bit and just keep paying. So obviously you came out of it once you realize it, and then having to tell your husband, I just need to know, what else did he say to you besides, where's that town car, that Lincoln or that nice vehicle sitting in the garage? Because I'm sure he was at complete shock.
Yeah, no, it didn't go well. And I'm sure you can imagine that did not go well. But the good thing was that I had it paid down to 48 before he found out. So I had it down to 48,000 before he found out about it. And we did almost get divorced. And then, you know, we took a day apart from each other. And then I actually went and stayed at his parents' house overnight and came home. And he's like, you know what? I thought about this. You know, we can work this out. It'll be fine. And then he's like, now wait, how much money are you making? Because he was a teacher at the time and hated teaching. And I had been encouraging him to do something else, anything else for several years. And after, you know, a week or so, he realized how much money I was bringing in. And he's like, wait, why am I still teaching? And I'm like, I don't know, quit, please. So within 2 years, he quit his job and started his own business too.
Wow.
So, I mean, it absolutely ended up being the greatest thing for our family ever, although it took a while for that to turn out.
Wow.
So,
that is very interesting, but it's great to see how you guys catapulted each other into making something, you know, seems so horrible into something much better in your life. And that's the thing that I find a blessing, I guess, and I'm sure you do within this whole storm of things that happened, that here it is, you went through this process. And then within that process, you realize what your capabilities were and how you could get this fixed. And then obviously you've moved on to do other things. Before we dive in the book, though, talk to me about your business of you have the coaching of moms and then your designing of websites.
Yeah, so that's really what I started out as a virtual assistant, and I moved into web design and branding, and I've been doing that for the last 12 years. And so I do that regularly. That's basically what pays the bills. And I'm also have this side coaching business where I help moms. Really, my passion is to help them understand that you don't have to wait till your kids are grown to do the thing that lights you up. And in fact, I encourage you to not wait, because your kids need to see you doing these things so that they learn how to chase after their own dreams. I feel like so many moms are like, oh, I'll do that when the kids are grown. And I'm like, no, you need to do it now, right now. Like, they need to see that. What really made it hit home for me is I love my sons. They're great and they're amazing. But my daughter is the most creative, artistic person I've ever met. And I can't imagine her growing up and having kids and deciding I'm just going to wait to make art until the kids are grown. And I'm like, I would never encourage her to do that. And I think so many women just put aside their own stuff until they're older, and then they've forgotten what it was. And then, it's just, I hate seeing people waste their opportunities just because they have kids, because they should be doing it because they do have kids, and to encourage them and, teach them how to be productive members of society who do exciting, awesome things.
Right. But as we all know, that's kind of always been the standard for women. We're the nurturers, right? We nurture our family. We take care of everybody first. And then guess what? We decide one day, you know what? I'm finally done with all of you. I'm going to start focusing on us. And as you said, you could have 5, 10, 20, 15 years go by and you just now starting to live the life that you want to live. And I applaud you for realizing that, hey, it's not about just being a mom. It's about also being able to be that mom and live your dreams all at the same time, and that you want your daughter and your sons to see that. And that's important because we do live in a different time. This is not the day and age of, well, you stay at home, you're just a complete stay at home mom anymore. And I'm sure there are definitely some women who are still doing that, which is perfectly fine. But I believe that's also a choice that we all make as mothers of what we think is best for our families. But for you having to put yourself into chaos and then bring yourself out of chaos, that to me is the coolest thing, because, you're becoming that example. But obviously you don't want to have your kids go through what you went through in order to figure it out in your, in your family and your friends and the other. And the other women that you coach every day, your whole purpose is to show them not how to do it the wrong way. So I think that's, the most...
Make it a little easier.
Right, exactly. But it's funny how we all have our own lessons in life that we have learned. And it's, usually not everybody's going to take those lessons and share them with everybody and teach them how to do it a different way. But we all go through something in our personal lives that makes us either wake up or either we're going to drown, one of the two. And, I think it's fabulous that you have just taken it to another level. So before we dive into the book, I just want to remind everybody that, hey, we are live this evening here on the Author's Corner. And I have my first special guest, author Amanda Arthur Krill. Krill, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Is it Krill? And,
Krill,
we're just excited to have her on, and we're talking about mom versus debt and what she had currently went through 14 years ago and how things have changed. So now, Amanda, let's dive into the book. Tell us a little bit of the secret sauce that you have in that book to help women and what helped you come out of debt.
Well, so really, I think the biggest takeaway from the book, while I go through step by step exactly what I did to pay it off, every single bit of it. But I think the more important thing is looking at why you're spending. And, for me, it was boredom is, I think, my number one reason. But I also have a lot of money issues from that I get from my parents. And figuring out what those things are is equally as important as paying off the debt. Because, you might get into debt again later if you don't figure out what it is that's causing you to do it. So like for me, I was super bored, not that I don't love being a mom. I do. I absolutely would never do anything else, but I was not meant to just sit at home and play with kids. Like that's what really pushed me over the edge is I needed some adult interaction.
Right.
And, but then at the same time, my parents, my mother was not a big spender, but my dad was, because he grew up with parents who had money, but then he didn't have any money because he was just a paramedic and a fireman. But he spent money like his parents spent money.
Okay.
So, even though he didn't have it, he was spending it like he did. And I just kind of picked that up too. And so once I figured out where it was coming from and, where I got these ideas about money and was able to work that's what really shifted everything.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it makes sense because you literally had to sit down and reevaluate who you were and what you were doing and why you were doing it. And then once you learn those pieces, that helped you figure out, okay, let me get this part straightened out so I know how to move forward. And that's always important with anything that we do in life. But when it comes to that amount of debt, and, there's a lot of people who will say, I can't do that. It'll take me 30, 40 years to get rid of that amount of debt. No, it's really about I honestly believe it's about the purpose and what's your priorities. And you decided to make your personal life and what you had done. First of all, you admitted to what you had done, and then you made it a priority to make sure that you fixed it. So that to me is a standout.
And I really wrote the book because when I tell people about this or when they hear about it, they are all like, oh my gosh, how could you have done that? But I know you all secretly have your debt too. You all have been in debt. Every single one of you have been in some sort of debt at some point. It's not something to be shameful about because it's just a thing that happened and you just fix it. And right. That applies to everything. It's just, a thing that happened and you fix it and then you move on.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody. I don't know too many people who haven't been in debt, So, even with the silver spoon in your mouth, I don't know too many people who haven't been. That's the world and society that we live in when it comes to talking about having debt. You can't even live in a world where you literally pay off everything and be free of it because then you're told you got a problem. So I'm just like, it's always that catch-22, right?
Absolutely.
So we're always going to be in some sort of debt. But talk about, what was the favorite portion in the book that really stands out to you and why you feel it's so necessary to share it with everyone?
I wrote the book so people don't have shame around it and, to get people to think about why they're spending. But what I really, really, really want people to understand is that no matter what it is that's happened to you, there's a way to fix it. There's a way to get out of it. It's not, you don't have to like be depressed and, let your life go. You just reassess, figure out a way out of it. And then, who knows where it's going to take you? Because like I said, this debt, when the debt started, I had never been, I went on mission trips when I was a teenager, but I had never been to Europe. I'd never done so many things. Once the debt happened, I get it paid off. I start meeting all of these amazing people who I never would have met before just because I started my business. I had a client that flew me to Norway to speak at an event and then let me stay in her house in France and got to travel everywhere. 2 years ago, I went on a yoga retreat in Italy as a trade for a website, and just all these crazy, amazing things that never would have happened if I hadn't gone through the debt and turned it into a good thing. That's my number one message, is that none of these things that seem like horrible mistakes or horrible, not tragedies, but really bad things, like you getting fired from a job that you think you like, it's probably God just giving you a kick in the butt to move you in a different direction that you weren't going to move in because you were stuck and stagnant in the place where you were.
Exactly. But what do you say, to those who come up to you and say, you know what, I can't do this. I've got, A, B, C, and D going on. I don't make enough money to do that. But yet still every day they're constantly drowning in the debt and, they're stuck in that hole trying to figure out how to get out of it. What do you say to that, to encourage that woman who's in that place?
Well, I usually tell people, this is how I did it. I got a consolidation company to get get things in order. They talked to the companies, they got the percentage, interest rates down. They helped me get a set payment, and you will stop worrying about what people think about you and just do those steps so that you can get out of it. You may only be able to pay the minimum payment for a while, but you will make, you'll gain ground on it. You'll get it paid off. You just have to stick with it, and don't spend frivolously. Don't spend on stupid stuff you don't need when you're in this much debt. You just have to kind of, pare back a little bit and live a little more simply for a while until you start making ground on it. And then before you know it, it's gone.
Right. And, it's the old saying of living within your means. So, that a lot of times people just don't do. And it's just it's because of habits that we're used to having. And when we want something, you want to get it and not really thinking about what comes first and what's the most important and what, isn't important. So it's that difference of, do I need it or do I just want it? And so your teaching of, do I need or do I want to, what other advice would you give about that?
My number one best piece of advice, and I still use it to this day, is if I think I want something super badly, or I think I need it, need in quotes, I need that thing so bad, I make myself wait at least 2 weeks before I'm allowed to buy it. And, unless it's something immediate that, something broke and I have to buy something to fix something. But if it's just something that I really, really like or whatever, I'll make myself wait 2 weeks. And if in 2 weeks I feel like I really, really need it and I have the money, then I might buy it. But 99% of the time in 2 weeks, I've forgotten all about it.
Right. Because it's not that priority anymis
Exactly. It's not at all important. I forgot that I even wanted it. It's gone. So it's just this strategy of wait, which I'm terrible at. I'm the most impatient person in the world, but making myself do that, I've probably saved myself thousands of dollars. So.
Right. And then, whatever happened to the good old days of just layaway, where people actually took their time, actually pay for it. They're bringing it back here and there, especially around the holidays, but it's that was the way things used to be. If you didn't have the money right then and there, because not everybody was able to get a credit card years and years ago, so you had to take the time to save your money up and you put it on layaway and you paid it off. But guess what happened at the end? You had no debt because it was paid off, and there was no interest rate there. There was none of that, all the extra that you went through in order to get that one particular item that you so thought that you need to have, and so I guess that's the mindset that a lot of people don't have today because they're not used to that. That's not what they're brought up to do in this day and age today. It's just about, get the credit card up, and of course now they're really enticing you because you get 0% interest for this and 0% interest. You don't have to pay for this in 84 months, but then you turn around and realize that you still got to pay for it, whether it's a year from now, 6 months from now, whatever the case may be, you still owe something and you still have debt. So, what do you say to those individuals who are in that mode right now? Because there are a lot of people, I'm sure, with all, because society's in a situation with the COVID-19 everything. So people are trying to get their businesses really back up and running, or if they have, or they're doing pretty good, they're still in a position where they can start buying and purchasing things with the interest rates literally being down to nothing. What would you say to those who may be enticed by that?
Oh, you got to be careful with that stuff. Seriously, you just think long and hard about how much you really need that thing. Because like you said, you have to pay for it eventually. And the 0% interest rate sounds great right now, but what if your business is faltering at the time when it's time for it to start being paid? Like, that is not something I would get into at all.
Right. Yeah, it's a big decision, and it's not a hard decision to make, but it really does make you go back and just, again, as we've been talking about, reevaluating your circumstances and understanding, is it really a need or is it a want? And, with that being said, that just makes it so much easier to make the decision to say, you know what, no, I really don't need that like I think I do. And then knowing what your priorities are. And that's what you've been teaching. And how long have you been doing the business that you've been in?
The branding and web design I've been doing for 12 years. Mm-hmm. I started out, I did virtual assistants for 2 years, and then I've been doing the coaching thing on the side for the last couple of years.
All right. Well, it's amazing how you have taken what you have learned, and it was a huge, huge lesson, and put it into a book that is very needed in this society that we live in, not just today, but every day. So I'm sure that there are many, not just women, but many families that need this type of understanding, and that realizing that debt is what it is, but you have control of that. And that's the key. And that's what you're teaching people, is control. So Amanda, why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, and if you have any coaching things coming up, or any classes or anything that you would like to, share with us, please do that.
Yeah. So my main website is justboldlygo.com. And then also I have momversusdebt.com that goes directly to a page for the book. And at the moment, I'm always doing branding projects and whatever, but actually just yesterday released a new course it's a course coaching hybrid for women and some, really cool guys, but mostly for women, that is designed to help women who have been in business for a bit, but they just aren't seeing any gains in their business. They feel like they're stuck, or they just don't know what to do to go forward. So it's a 3-part system where, like, Myers-Briggs and some astrology stuff even, and your relationship with God. And then we look at what systems you have in place and what systems you need to make your business run more smoothly and give yourself a little more freedom and ease in your business. And then the last part is a coaching part, where I just kind of help you make bolder moves and take some risks in your business that you're a little bit wary of taking, or you just really don't know what to do, because I know we all get in our heads and think, I don't know what to do, even though you do, but you doubt and all those things. So I just opened that course yesterday, and it begins a week from Sunday, and it's at rebelcurious.com.
All right. Awesome. Well, it seems like this time goes by so fast, and I would definitely love to continue to have this conversation, because it has been good. And you've, I'm sure, have opened up a lot of people's eyes and ears tonight, just listening to our conversation, saying to themselves, you know what? Gosh, I'm going through that same thing. What can I do differently? And, for those who need that push and need a little understanding, get Amanda's book, Mom versus Debt. This will help you realize that it's not about just being a mom, but it's also taking care of your responsibility of how to handle your own debt that you create for yourselves. And that's the big key word here, is that we all create a lot of our own debt and then sometimes don't really think about it and take the responsibility. But you have the control. Take the responsibility and take care of you first. Amanda, I thank you for coming on our show tonight with us. It's been a pleasure, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking on you, hopefully in a year or so, to see what else you got new coming out for us. Maybe another book, possibly?
Oh, yeah, I'm already working on another one. So.
All right.
Thanks for having
me. You are so welcome. For everyone else, we're going to be taking a couple minutes and take a quick break before we bring on my next guest. So again, thank you, Amanda. And for those who are looking to get her book, it is called Mom versus Debt, but we'll be back in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Author's Corner with your host, author Kimberly McLemore.
All right. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Author's Corner. I'm your host, author Kimberly McLemore, and I'm going to be introducing you to my next special guest here in a minute. She should be calling in here momentarily. So here we go. All right. I have with me April Jackson Hunter, the author of Mercedes Closet, Keeping Deadly Secrets. April currently resides in Georgia with her family. She is an advocate whose passion is to assist victims of domestic partner violence in the LGBTQ community. Her mission is to help victims of domestic or partner violence understand they are not alone. Everyone needs to know that there is someone in their corner during a dark time. For this reason, she founded Mercedes Closet, which is a nonprofit geared to offering support and resources in the LGBTQ community for not only victims of domestic or partner violence, but also victims of other violent crimes, such as rape, hate crimes, as well as trans violence. So welcome to my platform, Miss April Jackson Hunter. Hello, April. How are you this evening?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I appreciate you hanging in there and waiting for me to tell you to call in, and I'm welcoming you to the show. I'm so excited to hear more about you and your book. But before we move on, I want to tell the listeners just a little bit more about who April Jackson Hunter is.
Hey, of course, always. I am, of course, April Jackson Hunter. I am not only an author, I'm an advocate for domestic violence. I'm also ghostwrite. I do blogs. I blog for an organization that's called liveyourdream.org. And, of course, I'm the president and the founder of Mercedes Closet Incorporated. I've also co-authored another book as well called Wounds to Wisdom, the Survivor Series, Volume 3, along with 12 other courageous survivors as well. So it's my passion, it's my mission to help others that not only survivors but victims of domestic violence as well. Not only domestic violence, but like I said, sexual violence and trans violence as well.
All right. Well, you sound like a busy woman, and so we're going to break some of that down. And your projects and your passion is something that's very close to me and resonates well with me as a domestic abuse survivor. So, having these conversations are very important. And of course, within the way things are today and with a lot of the lockdown, with the pandemic going on, the domestic violence has risen 100% in our community. So, yes. Having this conversation is important this evening. But of course, we definitely want to dive into the book, and we will do that here in a little bit. But I want you to talk about your purpose and why assisting domestic violence in the LGBTQ community is important to you, and tell us a little bit about your personal story.
Okay, I am married to a beautiful woman. I've been living my life in the closet for a very long time, but I came out when I was maybe like in my mid-30s. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced domestic violence in the heterosexual world as well as the LGBTQ community, and it was like night and day. When I experienced with the father of my kids, I got help. I got all these people coming to help me. I got a PCO. I got protection. They even gave me a divorce for free.
Wow.
It was just so much help, hand over fist, and it was like smooth, it's like a streamline of help that just came one after another. It was like a domino effect. Everybody jumping on the bandwagon to give you help. But then when I experienced it with my ex-partner, mm-hmm. They refused to give me a PTO. They told me she was not threatening me. They felt like she wasn't personally threatening me, even though she was constantly kicking in my back door. Mm-hmm. She busted up my windows to my apartment with my kids in there. They wouldn't arrest her. She busted up my window, and she even drove by after she did it. And I was like, well, there she go right there. And they wouldn't arrest her. I had threatening messages on my phone. She was calling me, leaving messages with saying what she was going to do to not only me, but to my kids. And I had no help. They was like, yeah, I don't feel like she's threatening you. So yeah, whatever. And wow. I was left to pretty much fend for myself. I eventually just packed up and moved from where I was mm-hmm. and moved closer to my family to have a support group, so I wouldn't, be so much vulnerable, because I had moved away from my family just to be with her. And it was just a madness. And I was like in a search of help to have someone to even listen to me, and it was nothing.
Wow.
So, and I figured if this is what I'm facing, I'm sure the multitude is facing the same closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
so it led me to...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It just led me to build a platform for not only myself, but for other people like myself.
Right. And I was sitting here thinking when you were telling your story that the sad part about it is, we've struggled for many years just to get domestic violence is, a reason for people to pay attention to on every level. And then I never have heard the opposite story. And it's sad to think that because it's another woman, that it's no big deal. And that's what you've experienced. Yeah. For how many years did that go on?
We were together for the better part of 5 years, but it didn't start getting to that volatile until the last 2 years. And it wasn't to that extreme until after I walked away. Mm-hmm. Well, I decided that, because it was mostly emotional with her, verbal and emotional back and forth, and she had a way with words that would tear you down, and it was just like everybody in the house walked on eggshells when she was at home, mm-hmm. and when she was at work with a different atmosphere with the family, but it didn't get that volatile after I walked away, and it started getting to the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So,
Wow. Yeah, that's, like I said, it's just amazing how the story is where, 90% of the time when we're talking about domestic abuse, it's usually between a man and a woman. And so to hear your story that it's between two women and realizing that there was nothing in the system or nobody there to help you in reality at the time, the way they should have been helping you, because all they seen was two women. They didn't see really what the real reason was and what the real issues were behind it. So with all of this that you had went through, talk about the struggles that you had dealt with, before you started to realize that, I need to do something about this. And I realized, according to the information you provided me, that a counselor suggested that you start journaling. But talk a little bit about some of the things that you went through before you really got into that.
Before I went, my emotional state, or just the whole?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to talk about. Mm-hmm.
It was. I really thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was going crazy, and I have kids. And my kids are not. When my kids were older, they wasn't so much babies, but I thought I was going crazy. I couldn't sleep, and stuff that she was doing to me was triggering the things that I had been through with my kid's father. Mm-hmm. So I started having recurring nightmares, and I couldn't sleep, so insomnia set in. So, and when I'm awake, I was having panic attacks. My anxiety was through the roof. It's because she was yelling all day, and I was so on edge that I couldn't sleep, so I couldn't find escape at night, and I couldn't find escape in the daytime. So my brain was pretty much sleep deprived. Mm-hmm. So I started losing it. I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, and I just felt like I thought death would be better.
Wow.
I felt like I would die. I felt like it would be over, and I couldn't deal no more. And I was writing, and I saw something. I saw the mental health clinic. I just pulled in there, and I went in, and if they asked me what was wrong with me, I decided I need to talk to somebody, because I think I'm going crazy.
Mm-hmm. And you weren't going crazy. It was just the pain, the everyday issues, and what
I
triggered
PTSD.
Right, and you had PTSD, but then also what triggered you, the circumstances were what you had been through in another relationship. Mm-hmm. So it was like all of it was coming back at full force in front of your face. Yes. Yeah. And that's what happens, when you're dealing with abuse. Definitely understand it very well and realize that it's an emotional drainage situation for sure. And it does put you in a state of mind that you're trying to understand, how did I get here? After all the things that you've seen, you're like, why now? But the thing that I want to talk about a little bit more is the journaling, because journaling is what got you to writing the book. So talk about your experience of journaling, and then we can start to dive into the book itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when I went to the mental health clinic, I spoke to the lady, and I was telling her what was going on. Of course, I got on medication, but she suggested that I just started jotting down what was in my head at night, because I couldn't sleep. So she was like, in an attempt for me to get some of the nightmares out of my head, she said, keep a journal by your bed, a pen, pad. It doesn't matter. It has to be nothing expensive, just something that you can write stuff down on. So when I wake up in the morning, I just jot down what it was I saw in my head at night that I could remember before it disappeared. And it started going that way. And I go back over and I started reading over it. So I started adding to it. And then I go back and I started adding more. And after a while, I just had a whole book that I just put together from what I had journaled, my nightmares. Really, so to speak.
Right. But the thing with journaling is that journaling helped you not so much just remember, but it helped you also as a part of the healing process, correct?
Yes. Yes. Right. It helped me move past the nightmares. Eventually stopped. Mm-hmm. I was able to move past it. I could able to clearly see in my mind what it was that I was running from. I didn't want to remember, but in the art of remembering, it helps me to heal. So
right. No, I know we're kind of giggling and kind of taking this in light, but that's the same experience that I went through when I wrote my first book. It was being able to, and especially on the book about the domestic violence that I had written about, that journaling was the best thing and the best medicine that I could have ever had done for myself, even after going in and talking to counselors and doctors. And I just couldn't grasp in my mind that they could truly understand what I was going through. And so having that opportunity to journal, it made me bring up those memories of things I didn't want to face, but I was able to face them in a different way. And then obviously be able to share them in a support system through my book. And then, of course, other steps after that. But with your particular book, I love the title of it. First of all, Mercedes Closet, Keeping Deadly Secrets. That says a million things. So before you dive into talking about the book, I want to remind everybody that we are live here on the Author's Corner. And I have my next special guest here who's just been phenomenal. And we're talking about her new book and all the experience she's had. Her name is Miss April Jackson Hunter. And we're going to talk about the book, Mercedes Closet. So let's get into that, because I'm excited about hearing what these secrets were that you were keeping. And I'm sure you get this all the time. It's like, what are you talking about? And then especially just the name Mercedes Closet just sounds classy, right? But then at the same time, it's like, ooh, there's some suspense going on in there. So tell us a little bit more about the book. Tell us what's going on.
Okay. I chose a lot of fiction, so my book is fiction, even though my main character is Mercedes, and some of the things that she experienced in her life is some real things that happened to me when I was going through domestic violence. So when you're reading things about her, these are some of the real things that I actually experienced in my life with domestic violence. Mm-hmm. But I chose the word keeping deadly secrets because every time someone is murdered by the hands of their loved one, the domestic violence situation, the family has no idea. They never know that they were going through this. I never know it was that bad. I never know that this was happening right in front of my nose, and tell the deadly secret. We spend so much of our life hiding the fact that we're being abused, that secret in turn is what kills us.
Yep, that's right. There's a lot of women that go through that process. And a big part of it is fear. A big part of it is financial. Yes. A big part of it is trying to figure out, what are you going to do? How are people going to perceive me? What's the next move going to be? Right. Yes. Exactly. But in the same token, and it's the same conversation that I have had with many women, or women who are going through this process of understanding that keeping our mouths closed means nothing if you're not here to live, to be with your children, or to have a life, because like you said, nobody's going to know. And by the time they do know, it's that understanding of, well, why did I not see this? And a lot of times it's not that people don't see it. It's, is this really happening? Why, because sometimes we, on the people looking on the outside, looking in, they can definitely see things that we don't want to deal with. So in the book, you said you have this character, and that character, with a lot of the things that she's going through, is really about you. So talk to me and the listeners about what was one of the most standout things in the book, and one of the chapters that you want to share with the listeners tonight.
Okay, I have a couple of characters in my book. It's not just me. Okay. It's based on the lives of three different individuals. And I also chose a young lady. She's 17. She is in high school, and she's being abused by her gay lover, which her family does not know she's gay. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for her to tell her family that she's being abused when she's in a relationship that she's not supposed to be in. And I chose to do a teenager because it's happening so much in today's society that a lot of women, a lot of girls in middle school are even going through domestic violence situations.
Mm-hmm. Right. And at that age, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say the thing that stuck out with me on that portion that you're talking about is that at that age, you're still trying to figure out who you are and what you are and why you feel the way you feel, because your body starts to enlighten yourself and realize that, oh my gosh, I'm having these feelings. I don't understand it. And of course, even as an adult, 90% of the time, we still are trying to learn and understand who we are. Right. So being at that age bracket, it's, what does this character go through? And then how does she come out of that? Or how does she be able to move forward knowing that she is gay, and that obviously her family is learning that she is gay as well?
Well, she, in this particular chapter, she meets a young guy, and they don't really have a sexual relationship because the young man is gay as well, but she befriends him, and she starts telling him about some of the things that she's experiencing with the girl, and he's telling her that don't sound healthy. Like, this is not something that you're supposed to be going through. And she starts seeing the real world about what's happening. Like, maybe this is not right. Maybe it's toxic. And she tries to get away from the girl. But as with domestic violence situations, once you try to leave, that's the most deadliest part of the relationship with the domestic partner that's abusive. When you try to leave, it becomes violent. The girl attempted to run them over with her car. She was just being overly hostile to the both of them because she actually thought that the girl was sleeping with the guy, but she wasn't. So she was on the outside looking in at something that was totally innocent, and she saw something different. So she started attacking not only the girl, but the guy as well. She flatted tires. She was just going above and beyond to just be very hostile and very volatile to the both of them.
Wow. So
but I can't really tell you how the chapter ends.
No, don't tell us. Don't tell us. I know we can sit here and dive into the next thing. You'd be like, oops, I didn't tell everybody everything. No, you don't have to tell. But but I just wanted to kind of have some of that broken down in a way where people need to understand that it's not about just you being an adult and understanding who you are and what you're going through, is that it definitely happens at a much earlier age. And a lot of times we're very critical of saying to people, oh, there's no way you can understand how you feel. You're just, you're too young and blah, blah, blah. But we're not that individual. And that's the key to this conversation. That's the key to the portion of that within your book, and that deadly secret that she was holding on to because she's trying to appease somebody else, and because she's too afraid to follow those feelings that she has, or understanding what she's going through, regardless of what decision she decides to make. It's that constant thing that we all go through in society every day of people being critical and telling us how we're supposed to live and who we're supposed to love. And that's the biggest problem that we have in the world today, is that, somebody's going to tell you how it's done and they've never even done it themselves. They have no clue what you're going through because they're not you, and vice versa. Right. So I found that portion of the book interesting that you wanted to share. And so talk a little bit more about the whole concept of the book of Mercedes Closet, beyond the fact that we know about the deadly secrets, but what else is there in there that you think that's important to share with people today?
I just really want people in general, not just women, anybody that's being abused, because we know guys can be abused as well, is don't ignore the signs to try to see something the good in somebody. Because once somebody shows you who they are, that's who they are. And a lot of times people don't change when they're adults. They already said about who they are. In middle school, people are set with who they're going to be. Their attitude, their whole demeanor is pretty much set. The characteristics of that person is pretty much set. If somebody shows you that they're violent, you have to believe them for their word. You can't make them not be violent. You won't change them. You have to change their, so it has to be something that they want to do. And this book pretty much talks about the meat of listening to yourself, seeing the warning signs, and being safe. Because sometimes we know that we all get into that situation, but when you start learning to recognize the signs, you can make better judgment about, okay, I'm not doing this, I'm not going further with this relationship, this is not something that, I feel like it's comfortable for me. And you have to be able to stand by your word and say, no, I don't want to do this. And let nobody persuade you to be with them, because people do trick you. People are very manipulative, and they will, by the time you figure out that you in a bad relationship, you like 6 months in, so now you feel like you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not. You can pretty much say, yeah, no, I can't do this. This is not for me. You don't have to be like, well, I don't want to be with you. No, this is not for me. I think I need to work on myself. You know what I'm saying? So you can back out of it. You don't have to. It's not set in stone. I don't care how long you've known someone. If they're being violent towards you, that's not set in stone. You're free and clear to walk away.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, it was just
okay.
I just thought when I talk about it.
Yeah, believe me, I understand.
It's just like my heart just be like.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. But the importance of tonight is about not just sharing your personal story, but making people understand their value and understand their worth and realize that love should not hurt. That is always my message. When you at a point in anything that you do, in any type of relationship you're in, it's not even about being boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever the case may be. If love is hurting you that much and you're not seeing that, or that that's the situation, you have to make the decision of what is best for you. It's not about what their feelings are, because the whole purpose of that individual who's abusing you, it's about control. And when they've lost that control, that's when you know that you've won, and that's when they actually will react in much more in a harsher way, because they realize that they've lost that control, right? So, your story, and unfortunately, I always tell people that domestic violence is nothing new, but each one of our stories is very new, and that with us sharing that information with people is what helps people rethink their circumstances, and especially if they know that they're in an abusive relationship. And I understand that for you to come on my show tonight, and it's live, and all these hundreds of thousands of people are out there listening, that you're being vulnerable, you're telling and showing your feelings tonight, and it's okay, because this is the most important part about it. Because I can guarantee you there is somebody else out there who's telling that same story, but they don't have the platform, or they don't have the support that they need in order to share that story.
Yeah, that will fuel me. And to be honest with you, when I first started this, I never wanted none of this, I promise you guys. And I held on to my book for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I had someone to tell me, like, you need to put it out there. Somebody needs to hear your voice. And I felt like I'm insignificant. Like, who wants to listen to me? Like, who cares about what I've been through in my life? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, believe
and,
me. Yeah, and and as an author, it's like always that first time thing issue anyway in our head. It's like, really? Nobody, who cares about what I've been through? And
who cares?
But there are people who care, and you're no different. I went through the same scenario when I wrote my book on this topic and what happened in my life. I literally wrote the book within a matter of days and weeks, but it sat on the shelf for 6 years. 6 years before I could put it out. And we all go through that process of, it's personal, and all the things we're talking about are what really happened in our lives. And we already know you're going to get the critics. You're going to have the biggest question I always get was, why didn't you leave him? I'm like, why did I have to leave when it's my home? Yeah. People always assume.
They say it all the time.
Exactly. So people assume that you're the problem. You should have did this and you should have did that, not really understanding and knowing the whole story. So, when you can be brave enough to come out and talk about your situation, like I said, there's always somebody else out there who's either going through what you've been through, and, sharing your story is always a positive. But, I want to ask you one more question. So, like I said, I'm sure that definitely you get a lot of the same questions, but what is the one thing that really bothered you that people will constantly ask you after you've written this book and you've shared this information? What is the question that people will say to you that bothers you, and how do you respond to that?
Most people, what I hate the most about people talking about domestic violence, especially with me, is what they would have done if they was in your shoes. That kind of like That's my ultimate peeve, my pet peeve. Oh, I would have did this. Oh, I would have did that. Oh, I could have never did that. I'm looking at you like you don't know what you would have done in my shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you know? You never walked in my shoes, or how would you know how to react in my shoes? Like, I stayed with the father of my kids because I wanted to have my kids to have a family dynamic, a mother and a father. But in the end, I left because of my kids. I feel like my kids don't need to see this. This is not what I want my kids to visualize.
Mm-hmm.
So to tell me what you would have done in my shoes, how do you know what you would have done in my shoes? It's my whole thing. It's my pet peeve.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's always the thing that we hear. Well, I would have did this, and you know what? I was that person. I used to be that person. But until you're in that situation, you don't know how you're going to react. You don't know what you're going to do because until you are literally, it's in your face and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Especially once you've been able to.
So fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But a big part of it is rebuilding back that strength and that faith within yourself to know that this is not where you need to be at and this is not where you should be at.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people always throw that in your face, like I tell people, when you come up to ask me that question, why don't you just, instead of saying, I would have did this differently, why don't you say, this is what I can do to help you? This is what we can do together to get you in that position. So, and that's part of the reason why a lot of women and a lot of men, and they're, when they're being abused, is they don't say anything to anybody and they won't go to them because they're always
they don't want to be judged.
Absolutely, always that fear of being judged. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's still, domestic abuse is never going to go away. It's always going to be a work in progress, and it's something that we all have to continue to share. I absolutely believe in that this is a topic that has to be discussed daily because every, 9 seconds of the day, there's another woman being abused. There's always something going on. And so, I applaud you.
Absolutely.
And, if nobody tells you thank you, I'm telling you thank you. Keep, patting yourself on the back. Keep sharing your story and keep doing for others in your community. And, please tell us, April, how we can get a copy of the book. And if you have any upcoming events, please share that information as well.
Yes, ma'am. You can check me out as well as my nonprofit at www.mercedes, MERCEDES, closet, CLOSET.com. You can email me any questions. Of course, I do ghostwriting, so if you guys are interested in, you have a story to share that you can't write, you can hit me up. I can help you out. You can email me at mercedescloset@yahoo.com. And I am all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Mercedes Closet Incorporated. And if I do, every second Saturday of the month, I have a virtual support group. So if you guys are interested, or my survivors, or even my victims out there that need someone to come and vent to, we have a support group every Saturday, second Saturday of the month. And you can email me at my email address at mercedescloset@yahoo.com to get information about that as well.
All right. Well, you heard it live, you guys. Wonderful guest, April Jackson Hunter, who is the author of Mercedes Closet. Again, I thank you so much for coming on to the show this evening. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you continual success in what you're doing. And like I said, keep your voice ringing, keep it out there, let people hear your story. I know that some days it hurts and some days it's harder to talk about, but you're doing the right thing. You're welcome,
some days
dear.
It's a struggle.
Yeah, it is. It is. Some days, we go through it all. We're still human beings. And so, at the end of the day, they'll just know that, you got God's back. He's got your back, and he's going to guide you in the right direction on a continual basis, right? So again, you
Absolutely.
hang in. All right. Well, April, again, thank you for coming on the show. For everyone else,
thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure having you on. Everyone else, we are here once a month on the Author's Corner. And if you are interested in being a guest, I am currently booking for 2020. 2021. There are no more slots for 20. Hasn't been now for a year. So if you're truly interested, please reach out to me at KimberlyMMcLemore@gmail.com, or you can also reach out to me through Facebook at Author Kimberly McLemore as well. So there's plenty of ways to find me for those who do know who I am. And of course, if you have any things specific that you would like to discuss, partnership, sponsorship, or donation, please, I'll be more than happy to also speak with you on that behalf. But also, you can tune into this show. If you missed it live tonight, you can tune in at any time back on iHeartRadio. Plus, we're on 11 other great new platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so forth and so on. But again, it has been a pleasure to talk to you all again this evening. We will be back next month, same time, same place. Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll be back next month on Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with 2 more amazing guests. Follow us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Author Kimberly McLemore. Music by Audionautics.com.